Welcome to Doing the Work, a Naples integrated recovery podcast. My name is Brian, and this space is for anyone who's tired of surviving the same emotional and behavioral loops, whether that's anxiety, trauma, addiction, or problems in your relationships. Around here, we cut the surface level advice, no sugarcoating, no platitudes, no bumper sticker wisdom. We focus on clarity, responsibility, emotional discipline, and the courage to look at yourself honestly so that you can stop repeating the same old patterns and start living with intention instead of reaction. Let's get into it. Hello, listeners. Today I wanted to talk about something called a self-fulfilling prophecy. What it is, how it develops, and how it shows up in relationships, trauma, recovery, parenting, work, interactions with authority, and ordinary encounters with other people. And the basic idea is relatively simple. You expect that something is going to happen, and then that expectation changes how you enter the situation, and then your behavior, because of that expectation, affects the environment around you or the people that are around you, and then their response becomes evidence of your original belief, and the story that is in your head becomes instructions for your behavior, and then your behavior helps shape the ending. So if that sounded abstract, I'm going to tell a story which probably someone somewhere is going to be pissed off about. So I'm going to ask that you just try to just hear the whole thing without coming to any conclusions, without jumping in and being an advocate for something before you've even heard the whole story. And I wrote about this when I was in grad school, and it pissed off other students. So I guess I'm not for everybody, or my experiences aren't everybody's, so it's just one person's perspective. But about a decade ago, during my time in law enforcement, I was a supervisor on a shift, overseeing like 5 or 6 police officers, and I watched a self-fulfilling prophecy that was a fucking disaster. It was just a real messy situation. And it started that there was a teenager that was visiting Marco Island with some extended family for a weekend reunion. And this teenager started a fight at a movie theater. Maybe fight's the wrong word, but there was a disturbance at a movie theater where this teenager was very loud and confrontational, and somebody at some point in the theater said something to him, like, can you quiet down, or the movie's on, or something like that. And then it turned into some actual physical confrontation. The kid left the area, and the police officers were looking for him. I'm trying to word this very delicately because somebody somewhere is already getting agitated, I'm sure. So Marco Island is a relatively quiet community if you've ever been there, and this was a kind of unusual event for this area. Now, I mean, probably it's changed a lot since I have not worked there, but it's kind of a sleepy community, a lot of older retired adults, snowbirds, and tourists. And so this is kind of an unusual event. There's usually not a ton of disturbances or fights or things like that there. And especially at a movie theater, maybe at a bar at 2:00 in the morning, that makes more sense. But so this teenager left the area, and later one of the officers that I was supervising had stopped on a traffic stop another member of that family, and that teenager was in the car. And what should have just been a fairly ordinary traffic stop escalated to probably one of the most fucked up, massive traffic stops that I can recall, with like the whole shift being there or additional police cars being there. So as this police officer was on this traffic stop, the car kept going, which first of all, that already agitates the situation. If somebody doesn't pull over, and if you like keep driving another mile or whatever, this probably creates some suspicion for the police officer that, I don't know what's going on here. Are you trying to get away? Well, so if you're not like driving recklessly, probably it's not that. But normally when there's like red and blue lights, you pull over, right? You don't keep driving for another mile or so. So now for a police officer, there's probably some thinking of like, what's going on here? Are you trying to get away from something? Maybe in some situations you're trying to pull out of traffic or get to a decent area or a well-lit area. No, that doesn't even, it was fucking daytime. So like that excuse doesn't even exist. But is this person maybe like stuffing drugs, or are they trying to like move a gun? Like who knows what's going on, right? But a normal person does not keep driving for another mile or so. So it's already kind of agitated of like, this person's not stopping. And then when they did finally stop, a handful of that person's family came out and surrounded the police car. Now, a lot of times police try to operate with this like 2-to-1 type rule. Well, I don't even know if they still do that, but like a decade ago, it's always better if you can to try to have 2 police officers. If there is, you want to outweigh or outnumber with the number of police officers, that way you've got some safety, there's some leverage, instead of it potentially being one person, one police officer surrounded by 5 or 6 people. So, from this family's perspective, they were showing up to support or protect somebody that they cared about. Now, everybody's got their shaping experiences, right? So they're coming from a bad area where potentially there had been mistreatment from police officers. And so because of that, it makes sense that then they want to have more eyes on the situation or more people there to show up to make sure that there's not police misconduct. I'm not even arguing that. Like, that's totally fine. I am all for accountability and transparency. I love body-worn cameras. I'm all for all of that. We didn't have that. But so multiple family members surrounded this police car. And from the officer's perspective, he had just gone from dealing with one driver who had not stopped to now like 5 or 6 additional people are starting to surround my police car. And numbers, positioning, movement, and crowd behavior all really matter during a police encounter. And so if a police officer is significantly outnumbered, now he has to consider how quickly this could become possibly physically dangerous, even if nobody is violent yet. So the officer calls for backup, and like another car comes and the supervisor, me, and with that, so now there's like 3 police cars. And as 3 police cars came, this reinforced for the family, like, this is always the shit that fucking happens when we have an encounter with police. Hey, bring the crew. Now we've got like fucking 30 people outside this entire family, which, guess what? Now there's like 3 police officers and 30 people, which now the police go, don't know what the fuck's going on here. This doesn't ever happen. I need the whole shift here right now. Call the county, get me 2 or 3 county cars, so that we can maybe have 7 police officers to try to just be present with this small mob that has just gathered around this traffic stop. Like, what is even going on? Why are there so many fucking people here? This is insane. And the crowd is pissed off. They're recording, they're yelling at the officers, and deputies are showing up. The crowd is growing. Emotional intensity is rising, and the crowd is openly challenging what was happening. You know, anytime my family gets stopped, this is always what happens. And so, you know, now more police cars are showing up, and it has become larger and harder to control. And within this short amount of time, what should have been a very quick routine traffic stop grew into a racial confrontation, and the family saw this increasing number of officers and believed that the police response proved what they had expected from the beginning, and the officers saw an expanding crowd arriving to surround a solo police officer on a traffic stop and perceived, I need backup, like what the fuck's going on? And each new action became a justification for the next action for each side. So each side is experiencing itself as responding to the other side's escalation. And during this traffic stop, marijuana was found inside the vehicle. Now, back then, before like the law changes, now like you could just smoke weed everywhere. You smoke weed outside. You go to the front of the police station, say, "Hey, chief," and fucking light a joint. Like, I guess society, we don't even give a fuck about smoking marijuana anymore. But back then, there wasn't medical marijuana or all the fuckery with CBD or what you can and can't do. So like back then, it was pretty black and white of if there's weed in the car, there's weed in the car. And the agency had a policy in place that if you were from out of state and you were going to be arrested for an offense, then it meant a custodial arrest needed to take place. So what that means, if you don't get law enforcement jargon, is if you lived in Collier County and you got a bullshit, you know, you had a gram of weed or whatever, which first of all, most cops don't even care about weed. But if some teenager, let's say, or 20, whatever, was going to be quote unquote arrested back then for a bullshit weed thing, you just get a piece of paper, a summons that says, you know, you've been cited with this misdemeanor, or you've been cited with this local ordinance for weed. You got to show up on this date, sign here that you're coming to court, end of story. But if someone's from out of state, now we need something to kind of coerce or compel that you're going to cooperate with this. And the way that the agency had set up its policy was a custodial arrest, meaning handcuffs and go to jail. So now think about, add that additional layer of how that will also agitate a situation like, so now you found, you know, half a gram of weed, and now you're going to be putting somebody in handcuffs. And think about how much that is going to agitate this already super agitated situation. So the legal basis for the arrest was present. The policy supported it. And as much as many people have probably had bad experiences with police, as a supervisor, I was watching this and I was like, do anything possible to de-escalate this fucking disaster. We do not need to take anybody to jail. Like, I don't even give a fuck about the weed. Just, you know, do not agitate this or make it worse. It's already such a heated and contentious situation. Taking a driver into custody now, or whoever into custody, would have put this entire scene further out of control. And the immediate priority was end this encounter safely, and like, let's all just, you know, everybody just chill out, right? Now that choice of not making that arrest And eventually I spoke to, I don't even know, he was like a grandfather, but we'll say the patriarch of this whole family. And he was pretty reasonable. I'd explained why there were so many police officers there and what was going on. And he was also kind of to his family, like, everybody chill out. Hey, you go, like, close your mouth, stop talking, don't do whatever. So him and I were trying our best to de-escalate all of this. And, him and I shook hands, and there was, I don't know, for the most part, I think the end of it, I can't recall. But so my choice to de-escalate all of that did not prevent them making a complaint about the situation and a civil rights complaint being filed through the NAACP. And the incident was investigated, and my department's administration, there was a captain who is gone now. This fucking guy just was like, hope you did that right, man, because this is all on you. You're fucking going down. Like, no backing, no nothing. And I was like, well, I guess it's going to be what it's going to be, because I'm not worried about it, because it was all above board. It was all legal. I handled, we managed everything with respect, and it also made sense given what this situation looked like. And he's like, yeah, well, you better hope, man, because that's going to be your fucking ass. And guess what? It was just fine. It was a pain in the ass, but they reviewed they asked for all of the video of everything that was involved. And guess what? It was all handled by policy. The investigation showed no misconduct, no violations. Everything was respectful. Everything was fine. And now, of course, the administration comes back like, oh, you did a good job. Like, yeah, thanks, man. After you like hung me out to dry. And years later, after becoming a therapist, I came to understand why that incident stayed with me, because everybody in that scene believed that they were reacting to the environment or to somebody else. The family believed that they were protecting someone from bad treatment that they expected, and that unquestionably makes sense. I am not trying to minimize that there are not some bad fucking police officers who unquestionably agitate situations. Right now, before I did my last little social media hiatus, for whatever reason, the algorithm has been showing me a lot of videos of police officers misusing their authority, and it makes me insane. It makes me so angry to see police officers with a major ego, videos of like that a driver rolls the window down halfway and the cop rolls up like, hey, roll that window down. And they're like, it's okay how it is. And then he's like, get out, motherfucker. And they put the person in handcuffs. And like, that makes me insane to see ego and all that other shit behind a badge. So I get why this family was fearful or upset or trying to protect each other. At the same time, it agitated the situation. It made it worse. So the family believed they were trying to protect somebody. The officer believed that he's responding to a safety risk created by being surrounded and by being outnumbered. And then arriving deputies believed that they are responding to a growing crowd. Like, this is very unusual to see a large crowd of maybe like 20, 30 people surrounding a traffic stop. Like, this isn't something that normally happens. And everybody is pointing to the other side, trying to justify their next move. That's the anatomy of a self-fulfilling prophecy. A person carries an expectation because of painful or whatever past experiences into that interaction. And maybe this is like a really big example of it, but maybe you're just even carrying in that you've got a shitty face. Like, I know what's going to come with this. And that expectation that you have and the way that you carry yourself into that interaction can also then formulate how the other people are going to respond with their own face and tone and posture and interpretation and behavior. Because if one person detects guardedness or hostility, they're going to respond to that. And then their response then appears to, quote unquote, prove the original expectation. And then the original person walks away going, I knew that was going to happen, while missing the way that their own anticipation or their own shitty face or their own behavior or their own whatever influenced the encounter. So this process does not require conscious manipulation. Most people are unaware that they are even doing it. They experience their behavior as like necessary self-protection. They believe that they are reading a situation accurately and that they are responding appropriately, and their history may give them very legitimate reasons to be cautious. The problem develops when your caution becomes certainty of what's going on in the present before that other person has even done anything, or before that they have, if the person starts interacting with like your old expectation rather than whatever the present reality is. This same mechanism happens inside of relationships every day. Somebody believes people always are going to abandon me, or no one's ever going to be there for me. And then they enter a relationship watching closely for any little bit of perceived distance. And if there is a delayed text or a distracted evening or a request for space, and it reactivates this old belief, and then maybe they begin demanding reassurance or criticizing or testing the relationship, checking for evidence or threatening that they're going to leave. And possibly their partner tries to reassure them, but eventually becomes exhausted or resentful or emotionally withdrawn. And then the withdrawal becomes the proof. I knew you were going to leave me. I knew you wouldn't be there for me. The belief did not invent every part of the outcome. The partner still made choices and remains responsible for those choices. The person carrying the abandonment wound also participated in shaping the relationship through the strategies that they used to prevent abandonment. Their protection placed pressure on the exact bond that they were desperate to preserve, and this is where the work begins. The question becomes, what did you expect before this interaction started? What did your expectation ask you to do? What did the other person experience because of your face or tone or posture or behavior? And then how did they respond? How much of that other person's response came because evidence for a belief that you brought into the room from your past experience was part of that? So maybe think about if you have done this at all. I'll pause for a moment. Why does this happen? Because your brain is constantly trying to predict the future from an evolutionary standpoint. Prediction keeps us alive, because if our ancestors heard like rustling in the bushes when we were cavemen or cave people, you might have assumed that it was a predator, and that rustling in the bush sound, and previously remembering that there was like a lion nearby or whatever, would help you choose an action to keep yourself safe. So hear the rustling in the bushes, assumption, ooh, remembered I saw a lion once, is probably better than the people that just hear the rustling and go, right? And then they get eaten by a lion. So your brain is a prediction machine. It takes past experiences and tries to use them to help you prevent future pain. I don't know about you, I don't like pain. So the problem is that our emotional pain gets treated the same way. So if you grew up with a critical parent, then your brain starts scanning for criticism before anybody has even criticized you. Or if you have been betrayed, then your brain starts looking for betrayal before trust has even had a chance to develop. And if you've ever been abandoned, then your brain becomes highly sensitive to any distance or silence or a change in a routine or somebody's facial expression or change in their breathing or anything that resembles what happened before. So your nervous system is not asking what is true in this situation. Instead, it is just quickly reacting to what does this remind me of to predict future pain. And that is a very different question. Our brains love efficiency. So once it has built a story about the world, it begins filtering information through that story. And in a psychology lens, this is called confirmation bias. We naturally notice evidence that supports our existing beliefs, and then we give a lot less attention to the evidence that challenges that. So if I believe that most people are selfish, then I will constantly be scanning for, and I'll be very aware, and I will remember every selfish interaction, and I will overlook people who have been kind or have been selfless. Or if I believe that authority figures can't be trusted, because my algorithm is filled with police officers who are acting like a dickhead and arresting somebody who breathes wrong, then every encounter I have with police, I'm going to go into it with a shitty attitude, ready for a fight, right? And I'll notice any kind of an example that supports that belief and then dismiss anything that doesn't fit. And that's just how our human attention works. And that is also the cause of a lot of our suffering, because we're not responding to the person or the situation that is right in front of us. We're responding to the person or the situation that hurt us years ago. Your spouse becomes your emotionally unavailable father, or your boss becomes your hypercritical scientist dad that you could never, win affection for or feel like you were ever seen, or your therapist becomes the teacher who embarrassed you once and put you in the hall. Your partner misses one text message and then your nervous system reacts as if you've been abandoned. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The present moment gets crowded by the past, and one of the most valuable questions that you can ask yourself is, all of this happens in a pause, because if you're living with reactivity, then you're just reacting, that you feel anything, you have a sensation, and then you just jump on the first thing. But if you can pause long enough, imagine walking to your internal fire alarm, putting the fire alarm down, and then going, let's scan for danger here. Am I responding to what's happening right now, right this second, or am I responding to what this reminds me of? And that question alone, in a pause, often has enough power to interrupt a cycle before it turns into another self-fulfilling prophecy. So think about if you can just pause long enough. This is where the DBT stop skill is really helpful, which stands for stop before you do anything. Just pause long enough, take a step back, observe what's going on internally, what emotion is present, what does this remind me of, how do I want to respond to this situation instead of just reacting because I don't feel good, but instead to choose something that's in line with my values of me showing up how I want to show up, how I want to look back at the situation 6 months or 6 years from now when I don't feel bad and my nervous system isn't screaming. How do I want to tell this story that maybe the cop did have an attitude, or maybe a situation was bad, and What response did I choose that was in line with my values of how I want to tell that story, instead of the time that I reacted to somebody else's reactivity and then the whole thing escalated? Sorry, that's all observe. P is proceed mindfully. So stop, take a step back, observe what's going on internally and how you want to respond, and then proceed mindfully, STOP. And with that, that's how you can interrupt a cycle before it turns into another painful event. And look at that. I did an episode that was less than 45 minutes. Thanks for listening. Thanks for spending the time with me. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with somebody who may need to hear it. Be kind to yourself, be kind to people around you. Remember that we're all doing the best that we can with the tools that we currently have, and we're all capable of growing past that. If you'd like to reach out or connect, send me an email, brian@naplesintegratedrecovery.com. I hope to hear from you there. In the meantime, thanks again for listening. I'll see you on the next one.